This week, we're going to compare the Insta360 One to another newcomer in the action camera world, the DJI Osmo Action. The action camera market certainly seems to be getting crowded, so which one comes out on top? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Now, both of these cameras are from companies that traditionally are not in this market, which I think that's really kind of cool because both of these have some actual benefits and they both have some faults too, but they each kind of have their own like brand's flavor, and I think that's really cool in a device today. And this what I like about this is this keeps us on the action camera train because if you don't know me, man, I love action cameras. Like I said in the beginning of this video, the title of this video could easily be the first attempt at an action camera from a company that makes other kind of cameras. But let's be real, that's probably too long to put in a title. The algorithm would have a field day with that. So there are 5 things that I judge all cameras against, as without these 5 things, your action camera, it's not an action camera. It's really just a crappy point and shoot that nobody's gonna wanna buy a crappy point and shoot like that because it's gonna be all weird and distorted. Bleh. You need to have these 5 things, and we call those the pillars of action. Wait, why didn't it work? What's going on? Okay, I think we got it fixed. Here we go. The pillars of action. Okay, apparently you have to type it in all caps in the script for it to work. We'll learn that. We apologize. It'll be fixed going forward. First up, image quality. Both the Osmo Action and the Insta360 One R can record up to 4K 60 frames per second. The Insta360 can also do slow motion 2.7K and 100 frames per second and 1080p at up to 200 frames per second. While the Osmo Action slow motion is 240 frames per second at 1080p, when you do 2.7K, you still get stuck at 60 frames per second. Each of these cameras has, they don't market what size their sensor is, but they both, if they're not the exact same sensor, they are both very similar size sensors. The first real difference image quality wise is that the Insta360 One R does have more capabilities in the field of view department. Much like the GoPro Hero 8, the 360 One does have several selectable fields of view, from an all-encompassing ultra-wide to a more manageable wide, even a linear and a narrow mode. I don't know that this is specifically like exactly how narrow it is, but it encompasses all of this all the way down to straighten all those lines out in that narrow mode. Now the Osmo Action, it technically doesn't have any selectable, man, I'm having trouble with selectable fields of view in the strict sense, but in practice, you actually get 2. The de-warped, cropped in narrow vlogging style look and the uncropped, warped version that's much wider and more suitable for those action shots. When I say de-warped, cropped in, when it's warped, it has the bigger view, but when it's de-warped, it crops in a little bit to get that more linear look. Now, honestly, even on my GoPro, I don't always use every single option for field of view, so if these are the 2 that you really use, well, then that's just the right number. I guess you don't necessarily have to have an infinite number of fields of view. It's just the ones that you won't want to work out. Additionally, both cameras do have their own brand's version of a flat log profile, which is something I notice, make a note of, and then immediately never use. Because personally, I think trying to grade action camera footage to be an exercise in madness. Like now on these videos and all of my videos, I do minor color correction, but trying to grade low megabit, high movement action scenes from a camera like this, well, you'd have to be crazy. And I'm not crazy. But when it comes to straight up image quality, the outcome is much different than in the GoPro video from last week. I actually think that the Insta360 One has the better image quality. I know, I thought the GoPro had better image quality, but in this comparison, I actually like what's coming out of the Insta360 One better. Now, I do find that it tends toward the slightly over digitally sharpened, but personally, I find the colors to be better than the DJI. The DJI goes towards a softer, more subdued look, so I think this will definitely come down to your personal taste. The film crowd would probably like the Osmo Action video better if they're gonna use an action camera, but I prefer the slightly more contrasty and punchy look coming out of the One R. Audio is king these days, so how do these 2 compare in vocal recording? Honestly, I think they are pretty even. Neither is what I would consider to be the best sounding audio you're ever going to get, but I think they hold up well enough in their own. I would give it to the Osmo Action because the audio is pretty rough coming out of the Insta360 One R, but neither's Neither's great. Both devices even have the ability to use either a 3.5mm microphone plugged in with an adapter, or in the case of the One R, you can connect it via Bluetooth. Now, I don't know how actually usable that would be. I mean, I find that audio connected through Bluetooth good enough for maybe FaceTime, maybe a business meeting, but it's not good enough for like this kind of audio that you need for YouTube videos. But let's put all this, okay, let's take all of this information and put it to practical use with a quick vlogging test. See you out there. Okay, and welcome to the vlogging test of the DJI Osmo Action and the Insta360 One R. Now again, much like our video test with the GoPro, we're just kind of like hand holding them together. Can you check it out? Check it out, there they both are. We're currently recording in 4K 30 frames per second, and we have the stabilization turned on for both, and they are currently in their narrow modes, like their non-warpy mode. The DJI doesn't exactly have like different modes, but it has a warp and a de-warp mode, and we are currently in de-warp mode. So yeah, how's the image quality? How is the audio quality going? One of the benefits of the Osmo Action that you can see right here is it does have that front-facing screen all the time, where you can set the Insta360 One R to have something similar. However, you know, the microphone on the camera is currently facing me, and if I want to have the best audio, I can't have the screen, which on the Osmo Action, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So yeah, this is the vlogging test. It was very beautiful out like the other couple of days, and now it is freezing out here. And I forgot my hat at home, so sometimes you just gotta take what you got and go with it. So this has been the vlogging test, so I'm gonna keep hiking. You guys go back to the video. See you there. And we're back. I like action cameras because I can slam them down and not worry that they're gonna break. Now, honestly, both of these are pretty evenly matched as a vlogging camera from my point of view. I think the DJI is a little easier to vlog with the front-facing screen, but again, I do prefer the image out of the Insta360 One R. Well, and we'll talk more about these later. It's almost like those are categories in the pillars of action that we'll talk about later. It all comes together. The next category in the pillars of action is durability. You know that in my mind, this is an action camera must meet. Like, if it's not durable, what's the point? What's the point? What? Oh, there is none. If it's not durable, I'll just use my cell phone instead, and I'll get the same thing done without needing to spend the extra money on an additional camera. So here it's kind of flipped. It's kind of flipped. Can you see that? It's flipped. Both of these cameras are waterproof without a case, the Action down to 11 meters and the R down to 5 meters. Both have removable lens covers, which, I mean, I think this should be mandatory on all action cameras anymore. Like, if you're gonna make a camera called an action camera, you need to do that. And both do come with little external cages / cases that will give a little more structure, stability, and durability when in use. Dude, I'm dancing. I set up a gigantic monitor over here, now it's like, what can we do while we're sitting over here? I think the big separator here is the Osmo Action is just one piece. You get what you get in all one block. Now, my concerns about the Insta360 One from a durability standpoint wholeheartedly revolves around its modular design, which again, I think it's awesome that you're able to do this and build this device into what you want, and I really want them to continue to iterate on this and make better and cooler modular add-ons. But adding these 3 connectors to one camera does give me concerns for its ability to take a hit. Like, there's little latches in here that are now holding this together, whereas it's all one piece here. Again, the case, if you keep this in its case, that will mitigate that. But the camera, if you're out and about and you're doing action or you're having fun, it's not always gonna be in that case. Continuing to jump, so imagine the pillars are up and we're jumping on top of them. So we're jumping to the next pillar. Let's talk about compatibility with GoPro style mounts and accessories. Both cameras are roughly the same shape. Can you see that? They're both roughly the same shape. I mean, this is standard GoPro clone 101. Unless you are Sony and decide to totally do your own thing. And with their included cases, both cameras can use the standard 2-prong little action camera mounts that are the standard, and really what I'm talking about when I say compatibility with GoPro style mounts and accessories, I mean those little 3-prong mounts. The only real difference between the two accessory-wise, if you really want to use a gimbal, can you see that? The Insta360 One R is just a little bit taller, than the Osmo Action. So if you are using a standard style of gimbal like the Feotech G, I think it was the G5 that I used to use all the time, if you're gonna use a gimbal like that, you might need a special mounting bracket or adapter because see, it is it's just bigger. Like, the brackets are sometimes made for very specific sizes. And like I said earlier, there are audio adapters or other workarounds to get a microphone into both camera through their USB-C slot if you require outside microphone support. And one of the, you keep fair, one of the positives here that was a negative in durability is that modularity again, the modularity aspect of the 360 One R. What you see is not what you are stuck with. So if you buy this base model 4K, there are several other modules of additional capability that you can get for this camera. There's a 360-degree mod that will turn this basically into one of Insta360's, their fantastic 360 cameras. Or even the one that I'm most interested in is the 1-inch censored module, which might make this the first action camera with equivalent quality of image to a Sony RX100, RX0, or since it's a Leica branding, the Lumix LX10, which those are all fantastic point-and-shoot cameras and are clearly a step up from action cameras. I'm very excited to try that out. Fourthly, and something I love talking about here because I do think action cameras are leading the way in this category, stabilization. And really quickly, let's just step back from the script, let's step back from the video, and appreciate how amazing the technology advancement on stabilization has been. Like, it's been nuts. I've been making YouTube videos for a little over 3 years now, and one of the very first videos I ever did was about the GoPro Hero 5 Black, and it was the first GoPro with electronic image stabilization built into it, and it was terrible. It was bad, which is why you still needed a gimbal. But you fast forward just a few short years, and now all of these options have fantastic, like amazing image stabilization built into them, and you don't really have to give up much to get that. It's been incredible to see, and I can't wait to see what all of these companies have up their sleeves in the future next. Like, I can't wait to see it. Back to the actual cameras on hand though, the Osmo Action has DJI's Rocksteady system, and the Insta360 One R has their flow state stabilization system. But I mean, if we're being real with each other, they both roughly do the same thing. They crop in a little bit and they use other sensors like gyroscopes built into the camera to do an algorithmic guess into the future to stabilize as best as possible. You give up a little bit of the image frame to get that, and it's been worth it in my opinion. DJI's option is done entirely in the camera. So when you pull the video off the SD card, you'll have as stable as footage as you are going to get, period. And yeah, pretty darn good. I do think it's better than GoPro's Hypersmooth 1.0, which was already very good, and you would find that in the Hero 7 Black. But I don't think it beats Hypersmooth 2.0. I'm just saying. The thing about the Insta360 is some of the stabilization is baked into the camera, like the DJI Osmo Action, but the rest is applied when you export it through the phone app, and we'll talk much more about that app in a second. I do think DJI's Rocksteady comes out on top. Last and certainly not least, because this could be the kingmaker or breaker today, is ease of use. The category that in all the cameras that I talk about, it's always the one that's most important to me. And if you saw my comparison between the Insta360 One and the GoPro Hero 8, you'll know that I was very rough on the R for a few problems, mostly workflow related. One though that we've discussed several times is the modularity of this system, and to keep it roughly the same size as the other cameras in its marketplace, each individual part had to be a certain size. And because the current agreed on design for action cameras includes a touchscreen to change settings and function, well, because the module is actually smaller, it's a little harder to use the touchscreen on the back. Just physically, like look, it's like half the size of the Osmo Action. Plus, if you're gonna view through the rear screen, like if you're gonna hold the camera like this and take video of something, since it's smaller and square, if you have the camera set to a traditional widescreen like 16:9 ratio that we're doing right now, it'll put letterboxes on the top and the bottom of the video preview, and it'll make it even harder to see what's in frame and what you are recording, because that's small. As I get older, it gets harder to see that stuff. On the plus side though, like you saw in the beginning of the video, you can turn this monitor module around, so you can customize it a little bit, and if you want to be able to see what you're doing in front of the camera, you can very easily do this. The problem with that though is, you'll notice when you move that, you move the microphone away from yourself, so you probably don't want to do that if you want to use this as a vlogging camera, which is why you would want the screen in the front. The DJI Osmo Action has kind of the best of both worlds. On the back, it's got a huge touchscreen, which is even bigger than GoPro's. It's got a really quick and intuitive interface that takes advantage of all of this real estate and designs its layout around that, and it works really well. Plus, it already has a screen built into the front of the camera, and with a simple button press, you can either use it to be set to the rear screen or the front screen for monitoring. I actually really like the implementation. I wish this was on every action camera going forward, and not something you have to pay almost $100 worth of add-ons just to then also have to pay for the screen that gets attached to those add-ons, equaling almost $200 on top of a $400 camera. GoPro. But it doesn't just end there, because I did mention during stabilization, there is a two-part workflow for the Insta360 One R. First, you record the video, then you export it. On any other camera, you just pull the files from the SD card or the camera itself. But here on the SD card, you get Insta360's proprietary files. Now, they have reached out to me and they said they are coming out with a firmware update that should fix this. I haven't seen when they're gonna release it yet, so hopefully we'll do a follow-up here shortly saying that this problem's fixed. Additionally, there is a workaround that was told to me by AO Reliance, whose comment is pinned on the last video, and you can rename these proprietary files to .mp4, then you can get them to work as video files. It's an extra step either way, and you don't get all of the benefits of that second round of processing the files, but this does work a little more reliably and quickly for me. So there is a workaround. I don't know that I would buy a camera that needs that kind of workaround. It's just, I mean, it's just fiddly to use. And we don't, welcome back. We don't like fiddliness here on the Everyday Dad. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Which of these two newcomers is the best option? Well, I think it depends. This is not nearly as clear-cut as the GoPro video. Again, I do prefer the image quality out of the Insta360 One R. I think it looks pretty darn good for a mid-ranged action camera. But again, ease of use is one of my most important aspects, and I really like the usability, audio, and the form factor of the Osmo Action more. It's just a more enjoyable experience to use this as opposed to this. So, do you want enjoyability or the best image quality? Some people make decisions based on just straight up image quality. I think that's crazy. I think you've gotta go with what's easier to use, especially if you're making video for online content. And if you liked this video, you should also watch the one where I compared this Insta360 One R to the GoPro Hero 8 Black, which I mean, spoilers, I think is the best action camera ever made. Like, nothing else really is as good as that camera. And you can click right here on the Insta360 One R. We're switching, normally we do it over here. We're switching over here to keep you on your feet. Click here to check that out. Thanks for watching.